Good evening, everyone. How are you? It's Monday, so that can mean only one thing. Monday Night Mayhem. And just before I bring out all the guests tonight, I'll just give you a bit of a rundown of what we're going to do. We're going to do something a bit different this week. We're going to have a complete sort of reflection on the current state of Star Trek by looking at where we've been. So when we had it good with stuff like the original series, Next Gen, DS9, even Voyager and Enterprise, we're going to have a look at the glory days of Star Trek. And then we can sort of have a bit of a discussion about where the future lies for the Federation. And I want everybody in the chat to be as vocal as possible tonight because, this is going to give you an opportunity. I want you guys to dive in with your opinions and let everybody else know how you feel about the current state of Star Trek and how you think things should go. Right, it's now time to bring out our first our first guest. That might give you a clue as to who it is. He might be the oldest gamer, but to us, he's just gamer. And you ought to see him tonight. John Wick doesn't wear a red shirt. Hello, the oldest gamer. How are you, sir?
Hello. No red shirts here tonight.
You're definitely a captain, sir.
Original captain's uniform, you might notice.
And I bet you could take out a gun with a fucking pencil.
I think I could.
A fucking pencil! How about Klingons? How are you at wiping those guys out?
Oh, we're good. John Wick's not really afraid of anything.
Have you had an interesting week in pop culture? Anything exciting? Or did you watch Section 31 and you kind of lost hope for a bit?
Oddly enough, catching up on a few streams, I feel like I've watched Section 31 and now I really regret it.
Yeah, you, me, and everybody else who's watched it. It's not just original Trekkies saying it. It's even new Trekkies. They're saying it too.
Yeah, it's a mess. I've seen some folks create montages of clips of other movies on the internet that were far better than actually watching Section 31 start to finish. So that's if you can piece together clips of other movies and come out with something that's more coherent than the actual movie, that's a pretty good accomplishment.
I think kids in high school could make something a bit more coherent. I still can't get over the whole continuum transfunctioner thing. That just blew me completely away. So as soon as I saw the MacGuffin, it was like, dude, where's my car?
It requires a bio signature to activate until it doesn't, and then it does. It doesn't follow its own storyline.
Why are they selling a MacGuffin that only she can activate in the first place? That just makes no sense.
No.
Let's keep changing the plot and the script as we go along. I will catch up with you in just a moment or two, gamer. Thank you for joining me this evening. And now, by popular demand from last week, the one, the only, he's very dapper, Scotty R37. Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you?
I'm not too bad. How's yourself, sir?
I am doing super faboo. I am really excited that I get to talk about Star Trek because last week we didn't. And this is amazing in terms of what I've done to sort of prepare for this, where we've been, where we're going, the promise and the possibility is I got to be on a friend of the channel who was on last week, Anti-Derivative Jill. She did yesterday's Enterprise on Friday. And so I had a palate cleanser. Someone showed me a faux Garrett, the GoBot of Garrett's. And then I got to see real Garrett. Rachel, come on. Where have you been all my life? It was amazing.
It was, I thought it was a bit of a slap in the face of the memory of the captain of the Enterprise C. They didn't do her any justice in Section 31. And it's a part of Star Trek that didn't need to exist at all. I could be being critical, but that's just my opinion. Apart from Star Trek, how have you spent your past week in pop culture, sir?
I watched all of the Predator movies.
Over here.
Yeah.
Over here.
Anytime.
Anytime. Can you do a Billy laugh?
No, I can't. No.
Do you want me to do you a Billy laugh for you?
Do a Billy laugh.
There you go.
That was a good Billy laugh.
That's my Billy laugh.
I checked that out. And then also, I have nieces. So I went and did some thrifting. And I bought the 1980-something or other Tim Curry film, Annie, and The Sword and the Stone.
Right.
By the Walt Disney Animation Corporation.
When Disney was good. Those were the days, eh?
Well, it was wholesome. It was fun. And oh my God, there were swords.
Before agendas. We'll catch up with you shortly, Scotty. And it's time to bring on our final guest for tonight. And this has been a long time coming. I've streamed with this guy in the past before. He's very well respected in the UK and a bit of an authority on Doctor Who and Star Trek and whatnot. Here he is, the one, the only, Dan Hadley, Mr. Spacebook, sir. How are we?
I was wondering who you're going to bring in then. I thought an authority. Have we streamed before? Have we, Trev?
Yeah,
Have we?
on Mr. Brown's channel back in the day.
I don't go on.
Wait.
Let's change the subject.
Yeah. Okay. Oh dear.
It
Anyway.
definitely wasn't me, Trev, but nice to speak to you anyway. An authority. Let's go back to the authority, but go back to the stuff I like. I'm an authority. Am I an authority? Depends on who you talk to.
Of course you are.
A lot of people say I talk out of my arse, but I can talk, which is why I'm...
Well, as long as you don't do it on camera, I haven't got a problem with it one way or the other. But thank you for joining us. How have you spent your past week in pop culture? What have you been doing? Anything exciting?
I've been recuperating from a really terrible Star Trek movie.
And everybody else in the Star Trek fanverse. You didn't lower yourself and your expectations into watching Section 31. God help us.
Well, you know, the life of a content creator. Sometimes you have to take one for the team, so to speak.
Well, yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, a lot of people are doing it, and I wouldn't say Section 31 is divisive in the fandom, because whether you like Star Trek as an original Trekkie or a new Trekkie, everybody hates this film with a passion. It's not just us.
They do.
Everybody's saying it. Everybody's saying this is a piece of crap. This film, well, you can't even call it a film, really. It's not even
it's a television special.
Yeah.
So I've just seen a comment in the live chat. So this is the kind of... yes, everybody hates that movie. It's too early in the stream to swear. I know we'll get you taken down. Otherwise, I can't tell you what I really think of it. But I think the same thing that everybody else thinks of it. Diabolical entertainment is diabolical entertainment, and yeah, I mean, it's entertainment that's not entertaining, isn't it? And you do
not
wonder
really.
where they're at, where their heads were at. I think I know where their heads were at, actually, because I've done a lot of contemplation over the last few days, and more to the point, I've had to have a lot of chasers to wash away the taste of that, breaking the seal on a couple of box sets of classic TV shows.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? I don't know. There's no real logical reason for this thing to exist. I just think it's purely Michelle Yeoh's I can't say swan song because I don't think she's done yet, but I think this was just a passion project for her. She wanted it made regardless. And Kurtzman's just gone, yeah, okay, fine, fair enough.
I think
Michelle Yeoh. Sorry, Scotty, sorry.
Well, and Dan, I hope that you agree, and maybe you don't, but here's my proposition, is that I don't think that Michelle Yeoh gives two shits about Star Trek. Speaking of swears, I think that what she did was capitalize on her recent Oscar win, and Kurtzman thought he could ride some coattails. What else is new? And they were trying to make a TV show. Someone got an Oscar. Now we have to do something with these contracts. Michelle Yeoh comes back and says, pay me. And they say, okay. Everyone goes to see it. Everyone talks about it. And then I don't know. Hopefully Kurtzman says, all right, that's my time. I'm out. I'll see you later. Like, I don't know what the purpose of this was except to fail publicly.
Well, it did that in style then, didn't it? It accomplished what it set out to do.
If you're going to
It was an
belly flop,
exercise in saving space. It was probably a write-off of something or other here or there. Yeah.
I think
Who
you might be
made
having some
everything-
microphone. I didn't mean to put that on the screen. But I think you might be having a few microphone issues there, Dan. You seem to be going really compressed and quiet, and I don't know if you're hearing it your end.
Obviously, I've.
No, you're good when you're close to the mic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Franco Walker says a good thing about Michelle Yeoh. She looked bored as fuck, and
does that sound any? Let me know if this sounds any different as we go.
That's loads better,
No, you
Dan.
sound great.
Because obviously I haven't used any of this before, so
Yeah. And as Gavin Blackburn stated, and we mentioned this last week, Michelle Yeoh just wanted that 12 million.
I heard from Entertainment Tonight that it was like 20 million. Like maybe that was the
Yeah.
entire budget and they didn't do the research or whatevs. Because I trust Gavin more than I
There's
trust
definitely a
Entertainment
disparity in the truth and information about how much Michelle Yeoh actually got for this piece of crap.
Tonight. Mhm.
But she just laughed her ass off. Kurtzman's just given her a ridiculous figure, and she's gone, yeah, okay then, boomf, gone. That's the last you've seen of that money, mate.
Was there a
Okay.
contractual obligation with Michelle Yeoh that they had to put her in something, and so it kind of became a standoff? Well, you need me, so you're going to pay me. I mean, I don't know. It just seems weird that you'd pay her $12 million for an hour-and-a-half movie.
I think it's like Scotty says, she's riding the coattails of that recent Oscar, and she's just milking
She
it.
earned it. Like I don't want to. I'm not a huge fan of Michelle Yeoh, but I also don't want to.
Michelle Yeoh is
Well, I don't
not
fault her for the money. If she
Michelle
wanted $12 million
Yeoh-
to date her,
That's
great.
fine.
Michelle
Yeah.
Yeoh is not the problem.
Right.
If you
Okay.
think
So as
about
long
it,
as we have
think about
that, I don't want to.
She wasn't very good in it. Don't get me
No.
wrong, but she's not
No.
the problem. If they're stupid enough, I've got somebody in the live chat who says that I play it too safe. For every for every idiot that comes out with nonsense like that, I've got 100 people who say that I'm like the nastiest person in Doctor Who fandom, and I say the most terrible things. So quite frankly, you can shove it. If you want me to pull no punches, if you want me to pull no punches, I'll pull no punches. Look, it's not Michelle Yeoh. It's the entire culture behind everything that's at that studio that's infested all manner of other studios as well. You know, the woman, she's a professional actress. They were willing to pay her all that money. They were willing to hold her for 5 or 6 years. Yes, she wanted to do it 5 or 6 years ago. She'd got jack else to do, and I don't blame her at all. They promised this to the fans. They bigged up that it was going to be this, it was going to be that, it was going to be the other. And so they felt that they couldn't lose face. They had to deliver Section 31 in some form. It's all a fiasco. It's the most unprofessional production I've ever witnessed, I think. Not just what's on the screen, but its entire gestation period. And although
I have a
Michelle
question,
Yeoh,
Dan.
although Michelle Yeoh was absolutely horrendous in it, and I like Michelle Yeoh, don't get me wrong. Although she was horrendous in it, I don't blame her for a single moment. I'd have taken.
I have a question. I have a question for the
I
panel.
bet every single one of you and everyone watching out there would have done as well. How's that for you, Em? Is that playing it safe?
Do you think that Section 31 was worse than the Netflix adaptation of Cowboy Bebop?
I wasn't stupid enough to watch that, was I?
But I'm a Cowboy
Come
Bebop
on.
fan, and it's like
I'm sorry, but
pretty much
some
the same.
look, there
It's
comes a
pretty
point.
much the same.
Look, Scott, I'm not going to give you a hard time, but there comes a point. It's like people say to me, "Oh, She-Hulk was really bad. Oh, this show was." Well, of course it fucking was. What do you expect? Sincerely, if you watch these shows, what do you think?
Yeah, but I like She-Hulk because it had cousin Larry Appleton, and it was very, very true to
no, I'm poking
the
fun there,
1989 She-Hulk show.
So I'm poking a little fun, but
purpose-
there comes to a point where, as viewers, we've only got ourselves to blame if we're going to keep giving these terrible TV shows attention, continuing to play them. We shouldn't complain when they continue to make more of them. If we continue to talk about them on social media, make live streams about them, we shouldn't complain when they make more of them. We live in the attention economy. We should starve them of attention, starve them of oxygen. and it cuts off the shows. It just it shuts them all down, and we've seen it happen, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to stop talking about this crap.
Well, but I like Star Trek. I like talking about Star Trek, and even if it's bad Star Trek, if it's new Star Trek, I kind of want to address it.
I'm a total hypocrite. I did an hour and a half live stream about section.
See, all right.
Well, you were talking about Michelle Yeoh.
But the answer to the question is as simple as that. It's it's a nightmare from start to finish. It's one of the worst.
Well, but it's not a nightmare. That's the thing. Is it disappointing? Yes. Is it visually lazy? Yes. Is it written like a generic Fast and the Furious direct-to-DVD sequel? Uh-huh. Is it better than Hobbs and Shaw? No. What? And like all of this is, but the thing is that it's just bland, generic, disposable movie of the week bullshit. And I don't think it evokes as much passion as just point at the failure. I don't think it's an insult. I think it's a look what you did. You shat yourself in a pool, a swimming pool.
And what we establish some parameters here. What do you think it isn't an insult to? I would count it as an insult to my intelligence for putting it before my eyes, to my backside for making me sit on it, the wear and tear on my own physiognomy, sitting down and watching it, wear and tear on my equipment to watch it as well. It's an insult in my own home in that respect. It's an insult intellectually to anybody who ever worked on Star Trek up until 2005.
Well, it's bad science fiction, period. I wouldn't even say just Star Trek. I mean, you're referring to like the movie of the week. I think there were better B science fiction films on the Sci-Fi Channel than Section 31.
Definitely.
I mean, you can like Sharknado or some of these other movies that have been out in recent years.
That's good. That's good trash, though. It knows what it is. This film thought it was something else. It imagined that it was on the same sort of scale as some of the things that it, let's say, borrows. That it sort of rides off stuff like David Ayer's Suicide Squad film. I think in particular, even more than Guardians of the Galaxy, without any of the panache, any of the real swagger, anything approaching a kind of flavor that's up on screen. That film had no. It just had nothing. It wasn't just that it didn't feel like Star Trek. It didn't feel like anything at all.
But Dan, this is the thing: is that when I watched it, Section 31 completely failed on all levels to be a Star Trek movie. And the thing is that if I compare Section 31 to the series premiere of Star Trek Discovery, I would rather watch Section 31 because the first two episodes of Star Trek Discovery are terrible.
Season 1 of Star Trek Discovery.
Sure, that's fine. I don't like any of it.
But I thought Michelle Yeoh was better in Discovery than she was in Section 31.
See, the first couple of the entire first season of Discovery had something, but in particular the two-part season opener did. It had a rawness, it had a take, it had flavor, it had attitude. I wasn't a major fan of it either, but it had its own identity. It was bold in what it was doing. It had characters in it which provoked a reaction from us, and it could have been a springboard from there into something else. And for me, at the dead center of it, it did have a Star Trek enough ethic, a guiding principle that was visible, because Brian Fuller understood Star Trek, and I think that was showing. So
you're saying the series premiere of Discovery is better than Section 31?
By far.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Oh wow. I didn't. Okay.
Yeah, I watched all of season 1 of Discovery. It's vastly superior to Section 31.
Well, yeah, but you're comparing a season to a 90-minute television special.
No, but I called out Michelle Yeoh. Michelle Yeoh's role in Discovery was better than in Section 31. And we're talking about the same person.
And if I may, I think that she was, like, in the premiere of Discovery, she was better, because she was actually a virtuous person who we were supposed to care about. And that was apparently supposed to resonate throughout the rest of Discovery. But when we just saw that she was Mussolini or whatever, worse, Stalin. And yeah, it was just like, why do I even care about this character? I don't care about the character. the character is evil and awful from a place
Terrible
of
character.
genocide.
Yeah. It's almost like you purposely shoehorned and ring-fenced into like in Space Hitler. Space Hitler is good. No,
Space.
I don't think so.
I'm not
And-
going to forgive the eating of sentient beings.
Well,
No,
you know,
I'm not
she's
saying-
a fucking. She committed mass genocide on a universal galactic level.
Here's
but
our hero.
We're supposed to root for Space Hitler. No, I
Mhm.
don't.
The
it
only
don't
way
work
they
like
could
that.
No, I
have
don't think
built the only way they could have built a story around her, be it a 90-minute thing or a series, was to have her as have her on a leash in the way that Hannibal Lecter is on a leash in the Hannibal series and the Hannibal movies. Those kinds of shows. What's that show that James Spader's in? The
Blacklist?
The Blacklist,
Blacklist,
or
yeah.
something like
Boston
that.
Legal.
Where you see what I'm saying? But they tried to. Was it meant to be a redemption story of sorts? I don't know. Scumbag becomes a slightly less scumbag. I don't know.
I do.
What, the lesser of two evils.
Yeah. Comparing shit to shit is shit.
Definitely.
I don't mean to give you a hard time. I'm in quite a bad mood tonight. I think.
That's all right, mate.
It's cool.
You
I
go
enjoy
for
the
it.
debate.
You go
This
for
is-
it.
This is
And
my
also,
fans
I'm
hanging out.
not interested in impressing anybody in the live chat. And whatever your perception of me, quite frankly, you can go and do one. Whether it's good.
Well, don't listen to him. Join my OnlyFans.
No, but people come in with an attitude. They think they know who I am. Well, quite frankly, if I wasn't a guest on somebody else's stream, I'd be giving them to them both barrels now. Don't bother coming back to my channel. You're not welcome. Thank you.
Well, there
Dan,
you
you
go.
seem-
And on that note, I think
seem
it's time to have a bit of a timeout and
Yes.
sort of get back on track to what I was originally planning for us to do. But I like it, Dan, and I like it, Scotty. You've both been very vocal in the right ways about a lot of things that have been a lot wrong with Section 31. But I want to go back and focus on when Trek was good. It was weekly. It was different. There were no long-term story arcs revolving black female space Jesus. You got a crew of people who were just explorers out there, you know, going where no one had gone before. They were just basically out there exploring. And you got this bunch of guys. You got, at the time, obviously, you've got an Asian man, a Russian, a black woman, a drunk Scottish man who's good with spanners, and a Vulcan, and you've got Captain Kirk. You know, it's not a complicated formula. And granted, Star Trek didn't do that well on its first runs. It only started to gain popularity in syndication when people started appreciating it for what it was. And, you know, it was simple television, but it was good story writing. You got Gene Roddenberry got this ultimate vision of how we'd progressed as a species by, you know, the 23rd century. We were traveling through space. We were doing cool stuff. We were meeting new species and proving to the rest of the galaxy, you know, just how grown up we were as a species, you know? And like I say, at the time, it was simple storytelling, but it was simple in the right ways. And it was great. And it built a foundation. And like anything that you build on, it's only as good as the foundations that it's resting on. And the original series, for me, it's sublime Star Trek. Obviously, it's it's the benchmark by which we judge all Star Treks, you know, that have come after it and everything else. But it's just great storytelling. Gamer, what did you think to the original series the first time you saw it?
I was a little kid when you talk about the second run, you know, obviously in syndication, that's when I caught it. I wasn't old enough to see it during the first run. And I was just kind of reminiscing about some of my favorite episodes. And the three that I picked out were City on the Edge of Forever, Space Seed, and the Doomsday Machine.
They're iconic episodes. They're great picks.
And you know why they're still iconic? Because then when I would watch them in recent years, my son would start watching with me, especially like the Doomsday Machine. he would come to me and he's like, Dad, you know what, that show with the giant space thing? I go, the Doomsday Machine? He goes, yeah, when's that on again? Where, you go from a Gen Xer to, somebody born in the 2000s where it's still captivating to people. I think that's the earmark of a quality television show. It's not generation specific, like for you or I, where the show is lost on newer generations, 50, 60 years later. And the other thing I noticed about back then too is the myriad of episodes that had single writers over just one episode. It's like City on the Edge of Forever. The only episode that Harlan Ellison wrote for the entire series was that episode. And there's a number of writers back then where Gene Roddenberry would bring them in to write the episode. I don't think you see that now. You see a lot of these shows that have showrunners that A, they don't know the source material, and B, they're just very protective. So like let's say a showrunner, they're going to do things the way they want to do it. And you see it with some of the shows or movies. Where do we just see it? Oh, with Star Wars, where the prequel movie, they don't want to be tied to George Lucas's lore. Well, wait a minute. We're talking about Star Wars. You have to be tied to it. We do the same thing with Star Trek. You need to be tied to Gene Roddenberry's lore and the world that he's built because he's the one that created it. And you don't see that in a lot of the current shows where they put themselves at arm's length or, like say they're going to write things the way they want to envision it, which is a real problem.
And the thing about Roddenberry as well, he brought people like Dorothy Fontana in. And at that time, she had to use her initials because she was a woman.
DC.
So, yet again, Star Trek was breaking societal norms by employing women. Not only that, but, you've got Uhura. She is the nexus of all communication on the Enterprise. And at that time, she's a black woman. That was seen as controversial back then. It's nothing nowadays because, you've got people like Michael Burnham. She's the space Jesus we've all been waiting for, But
well, and the kiss between Kirk and Uhura when they were captive on the planet, where that was very edgy for the late 1960s.
Oh yeah.
A lot of the storylines that Roddenberry did, I'm trying to think of the name of the episode where you have, you talked about it last week, Frank Gorshin's character, where Loki, they're the last two of their species and they're essentially out to kill each other. And it's like, why? But it had a larger theme. His stories had a larger theme. And some folks would call it subversive. I don't consider it subversive at all. I enjoyed, as a kid. And at the same time, so you're talking about like 1972, 1973, then the cartoons came out. And so you had a continuation of the Star Trek series, albeit a short run in the cartoon series, but you could see your same characters, Kirk and Spock, they could actually do things in animation that they couldn't physically do in real life. And so, what's that?
Have you seen the animated series?
It's Filmation. There we go. That speaks volumes.
Yeah, no, I have it on disc.
Yeah, me too. I have it on disc. And the thing is I had a beautiful time. I watched it for the first time all the way through last year. A lot of it's good. A lot of it's not. I don't know how those fractions work out, but there are interesting stories, but there is something about the Filmation representation. And it's just like,
yeah.
Have you seen the Filmation representation of Deep Space Nine when they've done that?
Oh yeah, no,
and they're spoofs. They're spoofs. They've done one of Next Gen and Voyager.
But they've done an excellent job at doing that.
Yeah,
didn't they do two?
That was just some random guy in his bedroom because he did a follow-up video to that. But he does a good Filmation version of Threshold from Voyager. The one where Tom Paris breaks Warp 10 and him and Janeway turn into Newts and screw.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
I remember it. I watch it every Saturday.
That's voted the worst ever episode of Voyager in the entire series. I didn't mind it.
I think it takes strides just in terms of the body horror.
Yeah.
Like when
Plus he mutates like
Paris
hell,
is-
doesn't he? Yeah.
Bloody horror.
They
Did they-
rip out his tongue.
Yeah. In fact, didn't I drew comparisons between that episode and Tom Paris's dilemma with Seth Brundle in The Fly?
Sure.
It was almost like Cronenberg-esque in places.
Oh, come on.
Oh.
Well, I suppose it is if it was made by
but
Cosgrove Hall.
A tongue-in-cheek version of, come
Yeah,
on.
I suppose so.
You
On
know,
a television budget in the
Yeah.
mid-90s.
I mean, at least he didn't climb across the fucking ceiling. I suppose that's one thing. But he you know, like when he was peeling his fingernails off,
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
his
that's
ears
gross.
dropped off.
I mean,
No, I think it's an interesting artifact.
I mean, the thing I remember about that story, and it's, I don't like holding up episodes like that because they're very atypical, even to Voyager, which I don't think is many people's favourite Star Trek show. But I've got a lot of time for Voyager, but I think it is quite atypical of the standard of that show, how tight it usually was, because it is. You have to think it's a very silly piece of TV.
It's the Star Friends was popular, so they made Star Trek Friends. We had Space Chandler.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's atypical episodes to all the Star Trek shows. You could say that City on the Edge of Forever is completely atypical to the original series, and yet it's the one that, well, one of the two or three that people tend to hold up. It's one that won all those awards. And Harlan Ellis, what's his name? Harlan Ellison.
Harlan Ellison, yeah.
Ellison,
yeah.
He ate out on that, didn't he, for decades afterwards, and got him into all sorts.
Oh, and he smacked him in the face.
But
Smacked him in the face at the Saturn Awards. What was it?
It's the exceptions that prove the rules, though, isn't it? And you know, there is Star Trek is reasonably malleable for a show that's ideally should have a set cast and some really clear, let's say, guiding principles. I think you can do a lot with it.
Well, that's the great thing about Star Trek, and especially the original series and its cast and the subsequent spin-offs. You know, like I said, they had a great foundation that they were built on, and that's where they've got that flexibility, you know, and they've got that rich heritage of great storylines and sort of pushing boundaries and you know, trying new things and doing it in the right way without following narratives, which is where I think New Trek kind of falls flat on its face because it's pushing the message.
Well, there aren't any narratives. You know, so it can't. There's nothing there, is there? So
there's a friend of mine. There's a friend of mine who passed away last year, and when I say friend, I loved him. I don't know. He thought I was a dick, but. So I was watching Star Trek The Next Generation, or I was watching the original series with him, and then I would talk about The Next Generation, and he would be like, F The Next Generation. Just a bunch of pussies negotiating. Give me a little balls out fist fight. And it's like, dude, I thought that the, you know, open-mindedness and exploration of Star Trek was something that I really enjoyed about it. You know, you'd get a fist fight, but then Kirk would be like, we're not going to kill. We're not going to kill today. And that was the thing. And that, as the Federation sort of moved out into the galaxy, encountered new people, like boldly went where no man had gone before. And then, you know, once we invited Klingons into the club, we said no one. It's not about the ladies. It's about the different species, yo. And so, yeah, we moved forward from that. But I knew people who were just like, Next Generation is for a bunch of slack-jaw homosexuals.
Maybe they should try some chewing tobacco. It makes them a goddamn sexual tyrannosaurus, just like me.
But that's the thing, is that everybody who thinks that the new progression of the progressive fairy tale of space travel and learning about humanity and whatnot, it's like, oh no, this is a bridge too far. What do you mean they have a therapist on the bridge? This is stupid.
That really wound a lot of people up.
It did.
It
Well,
wound
basically,
a lot of
she
people
was
up.
It was
she was
perceived
there
as
as eye
touchy-feely.
candy. She was there for eye candy for the some of the people who perhaps wouldn't have watched it. And then you've got Denise Crosby and Dr. Crusher, and they're all basically fit birds. And fair enough, they went a bit gilf in season 2 with bringing Diana Muldaur back.
That still sort of worked for me, I have to say. It did the trick for me. I'd have,
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Is she gilf material, Dan?
Near enough.
Well, let's not forget, in canon, Dr. Catherine Pulaski did have sex with Riker's dad, Kyle Riker.
Who didn't have sex with Riker's dad in that episode?
Data, oddly enough.
Well, he is fully functional, practiced in multiple techniques.
Yeah, but Kyle doesn't like the robots.
I wonder if, Tasha Yar had to wind his balls up. Has he got a clockwork dick?
No, come on. That's
probably
come on, that's taking the fun out of it, Scotty. It'd just be fun for it to be like she's winding his balls
I think
up.
she probably popped his Tezers onto one of those sort of cordless chargers you can get for phones now. Just gently rest
you don't have to blow an Android, right? Foreplay is not a thing.
No, he's just basically he's a sex toy.
Yeah,
he's a rampant rabbit.
Good for Tasha. Good for her.
Definitely.
I got drunk and used a robot.
I hope it didn't leak WD-40 into that. Oh God, no.
Okay.
Oh dear. Anyway,
all right.
Moving swiftly on. Right. Whoa, time out, guys. It's getting a bit fucking raunchy in here now. Calm down, guys. So, anyway, Scotty, for you, the original Star Trek, is it what made you fall in love with Star Trek?
Yeah.
Why? What was it about Star Trek? What was it about the writing and the characters that drew you to it?
I remember very specifically the first time I saw an episode of Star Trek. It was Where No Man Has Gone Before. It was the one with Gary Mitchell and the silver eyes, and Captain Kirk fought him. And I was just like, what the hell is this? And then 7 years later, my parents came and said, do you want lunch? And I was like, who are you?
Nice.
It was everything. When I saw it for the first time on the CBC in Canada, I was just like, okay, so when's it on? And I sought it out. I saw Star Trek 2 on VHS in when? Probably 1983, 1984. I watched all of the rest of them on, I watched, I love these guys. These people have become, in the way that the Star Trek 6 teaser trailer explains, they have been our guides, they have been our protectors, and they have been our friends. I love these guys.
That sums it up perfectly. Dan, what about you? What originally drew you into the universe of Star Trek?
I'm not entirely sure. I think it's simply because when I was a kid, there was so little. In all honesty, I'd like to say it was something really profound about Star Trek itself. It's simply because there was so little escapism on that was literally sort of out there. You've got a handful of superhero shows. I mean, I've been around since the early 70s, believe it or not. There were a handful of superhero shows on, things like Linda Carter's Wonder Woman and the Hulk show and things like that. But as for anything that was further afield and literally looking to the stars, there wasn't much at all. So Star Trek was sort of it.
I have to agree with you. TV in the UK was very, very sparse on science fiction, and quality science fiction at that. At the time when Star Trek was run, was during the 70s on BBC Two, believe it or not. I don't know if you remember that, Dan.
Yes, a staple. Yeah, a staple of BBC, and they would move it. They would move it around. You see, Star Trek for me was a slow thing. I didn't fall in love with it even. It gradually got a hold of me over a period of about 10 years, and I think it took until Doctor Who disappeared from screens completely for me to really latch on to Star Trek. And in all honesty, I think what really won me over were actually the movies, not the TV show.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
That has been a lot of people's reaction to Star Trek and how they got into it. It wasn't necessarily the motion picture what drew them in, but it was Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, and I had a bit of a bizarre realization that I had a "fuck, I'm old" moment, because when it was 40 years after the release of Star Trek II, it was shown again at my local cinema. So me and my eldest son, who's 26, we went to see it. And I said to him, I saw this the day it was released in the UK back in 1983. I can't remember when it was released in the UK. I think it was 82. But yeah, I saw it for the first time and it was just amazing.
Do you think, Trev, that part of the appeal as well, I think one of the reasons I latched onto it was the fact that the lead characters by then were middle-aged?
Not so, because I'd already had experience of watching the original series. And I just loved that whole vibe about Star Trek. It was everything about it. It was the aesthetic of the ships. It was the technology. I was already established with the characters. And bizarrely enough, James Doohan, when he was Scotty in the original series, was the spitting image of my Uncle Alan. So God
bless Uncle Alan.
And he's an engineer to boot. So, you know,
but Dan, just to speak to what you're saying, one of the things that I enjoyed about the original series of Star Trek, of course, I saw the reruns, but then, yes, I was much more enamored with the movies. And the thing is that these were adults. These were authority figures.
I think that's what won me over. I think it's because they were adults. They'd got that sort of slightly rebellious edge to them, whereas everything else, the heroic figures, were the kind of, most of them were played by Harrison Ford, basically. But they were, say, 30 tops. You know, they always got the girl. There was always lots of swagger, very physically able. And there was Kirk with slightly failing eyesight, and McCoy, who was very, very grizzly, you know. And I think that was what won me over. And afterwards, I went back and watched the original series and sort of saw it with new eyes, because I'd got this affection for the characters actually from the movies. I'd found the characters a little hard to warm to initially in the original TV. I know results are going to vary on this. I'm almost certainly in a minority, but this was just my experience with it. I think it was tied to the age that I was and the way that Star Trek was shown.
Sure. I watch Star Trek now, and I'm like, I'm the same age as Captain Picard in the first episode of Next Generation.
Yeah, it's a funny feeling, isn't it?
I look better.
Well, I've got to admit, you are a very dapper fella, sir.
Yeah, but I can't act.
Just putting the brakes on the set, guys. But we're leaving Gamer out of the mix a little bit. So, Gamer, anything else you want to add about the original series before we move on?
Just that I was thinking, you know, when people watch movies, and there's always those movies, I'll pick like The Great Escape. You see a movie and you stop and you watch it. Here in the States, Star Trek's on Heroes and Icons. So when an episode comes around, like I mentioned earlier, where my son will see it, if I'm up and I'm watching it, I'll stop and watch, you know, whatever the episode is that's on. And who knows how many times I've seen it. It might be 30 or 40 times since my childhood and any one particular episode that I've seen it. But the point is, 9:00 and it's on, I'm going to watch it. So going back to what I said earlier, also, it's one of these legacy shows, kind of like the old Doctor Who. It stays with you. If you saw it at the time, or even if you see it now, you can appreciate it for what it was. And Dan made a great point. I think what Dan said, that it's very adult.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is. It's provoking, you know, very provocative in the right ways. Not enough to. I'm getting a bit lost in what I'm trying to say. It was enough to be thought-provoking, is what I'm trying to say. There was enough meat on the bone to make you question certain things. And even though every episode sort of wrapped itself up nicely, it was all self-contained. And you were wanting more, you know, and every week it did deliver in places. I mean, the only letdown for me as a Star Trek fan was season 3. And that was because of who they brought in to reduce production costs. If you know what I mean. If you know, Fred, if you know, because he did the exact same thing to Space 1999 season 2.
Oh, my stars.
And he was notorious for that. Anyway, just moving on, I just thought we'd have a nice little palate cleanser.
I just want to say, before we move on past season 3 of Star Trek, the original series, I would recommend, if you would like to see a better version of that and you want to remember it more positively, I would recommend watching it in production order as opposed to release.
Yes, because it's out of sync, isn't it?
Well,
I've never had a problem with it. I don't know what people complain about it so much for. I think it's right.
But I'm just saying, if you want a better experience, if you watch it in production order, it looks like it's building to something, and Spock's brain becomes a silly episode as opposed to being the first episode of the season. And it changes your perspective on it, and I do appreciate it. Because while it is said that the production value goes down, it's like, yeah, I guess. But also, like, they were fighting at the beginning of the 3rd season. And if you watch it in production order, it does look like they're like, we have to hold on. And then they're like, nah, Kirk transfers into a chick at the end. It's fine.
Just looking at that, the Internet Help Desk says ship porn. The Enterprise is a very beautiful ship. And it is.
Yes.
I was always captivated by the sight of the Enterprise. That was until Star Trek the Motion Picture. And then this came along. Well, this is the not the refit, but the first time I saw the refit, I was like, oh my God, I am in love. You know, when that look on Kirk's face, you know, when Scotty's taking him on that tour and he pulls round and you see the Enterprise full on for the first time in Space Dock. And you see that look on Kirk's face. That's exactly how I felt the first time I saw the refit model of the Enterprise.
I have that as a Christmas ornament. It was my first gift that I was given by my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, because she knew how much I loved the series. And I got that, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then Next Generation had to nick the theme tune and make it their own.
Oh, come on.
Speaking, of course they did. Are you deaf?
Of course, it's called continuity and reverence for the source material.
Yeah, but you'd have thought they'd have come up with an original theme tune for the Next Generation.
I think it actually helps. That's interesting. I haven't encountered this,
doesn't it? It just helps reinforce
this conversation in a long time. I remember people telling me that they should not have used the Star Trek the Motion Picture as the theme song for the Next Generation, and it's always fit for me. I don't understand. So why you do feel that instead of having a continuity of theme, like I even love, like when they bring up the Klingons, is we get the Klingon march from Star Trek the Motion Picture. I think that if you want to be reverent to Star Trek the Motion Picture, I don't think Star Trek the Next Generation shirked its responsibilities in that regard.
Oh, I wouldn't say it did at all. So I kind of disagree with you in that respect. It's just the fact that to use that theme, it's there to bolster a new series and give you that connection to Star Trek. But I don't know. It would have been interesting to see what it would have been like if it had its own theme tune. Would it have been as successful as what it was?
Yeah, well, it would have been a long road getting from there to here.
Yeah. The time has finally come, but never mind.
But my time is finally here.
Well,
moving on.
Yeah. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Next Gen. I remember having to go to a video store in the next town because they were the only video store that had a copy of Encounter at Farpoint. And it was a case of you had to rent part 1 before they'd let you rent part 2. That's how sparse Next Gen was in the mid-'80s when it came out over here. But Sky One got a hold of it, and that was it. Boom! It kind of took off, and it became its own thing. What did you think, Gamer, the first time you saw the Next Gen?
I enjoyed it a lot, especially the introduction of the character Q. Having the gap. What's that?
I just said good night to Franco. I apologize.
Oh, sorry. It being a 2-parter like that with the caretaker and the creatures underneath the city, or were representing the city. I thought it was a good jump off point. You could tell it was still a Gene Roddenberry creation. It was still giving you something to think about. And I think it was a good launch point for the series, because you started with Picard and Q, and the series ended with Picard and Q.
Yeah, all good things.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great finale for season 7.
I think it's probably the best finale of all the shows, quite frankly.
I tend to agree. DS9 was a bit of a letdown, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but DS9 had higher points during the seasons leading up to that, so
right?
You can't end on a high note after the war, the
Cardassian Dominion War.
Dominion Wars. Yes,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Scotty, I would have liked to have seen an ending where Sisko got his cake and eat it.
Yeah, I guess. Like, it is a downer of an ending, but then again, Deep Space Nine sort of made a reputation for being a bit darker, the edge of the final frontier, and so when it ended on, I don't know, ambivalence, not ambivalence. There was just a question as to, like, I might be back tomorrow or yesterday. Like, I loved that idea where even Sisko became Q to a certain extent. But the problem is that, he kind of
maybe
left
tomorrow
his entire family.
He'll want to settle down. Until tomorrow, he'll just keep moving.
Oh, he's the littlest homo.
Do you know, I once wanted to write a TV show about a 3-foot gay midget detective called The Littlest Homo, but nobody was interested in buying it as a series.
Peter Dinklage.
He would have been great.
On the table right now.
Yeah. He'd make a great bizarre sex dwarf.
He would be a great littlest homo.
Wouldn't he,
He's a good actor.
He's great. Dan, anyway, we moved off topic, Scotty, so I'm putting you in the sin bin for a minute, so you hold on there, boy. Dan, what did you think to Next Gen, and what was your first experience of it?
I was a big fan of Next Generation, because I was glued to the movies, and obviously the show. We obviously it had that long gestation period, so that's a whole conversation in itself. But the birth of it and the appearance of it was bang on for me. I'd read about it in Starburst magazine, bit by bit by bit by bit, and I couldn't wait to see it. So, like you, when I saw, because we used to go into the local video store, which is like an independent thing. They've got like three shops, independent chain locally, and they used to have a board above the counter. When you took the films in and out.
Yeah, one of ours had one of those. Yeah, I remember those.
And people the members of staff would write on in marker. It was like a wipe off thing. What was coming on what date? And I remember seeing at the bottom of the list that Star Trek: The Next Generation Volume 1 was due for release in about 2 months' time. And gradually watching as it made its way higher and higher up the list to out next week. So just like you, I think I put my name down for it. There was no waiting list as such, but I put my name down for that so I could watch it right away.
That was roughly around the time when you could start booking stuff, because stuff like that was becoming quite popular, but it was very sparse. Like I said before, with all science fiction on British TV. And somebody did mention rightly in the chat about stuff like Sapphire and Steel, and I didn't get around to mentioning like my staples when the BBC Two ran the rerun episodes of the original series. Was roughly around the same time that Blake 7 started. So we were looking 1978.
Right.
So you'd got your Star Trek, I think it was on a Thursday, because straight after, if you went over to BBC, you'd got Angels, which was popular back in the day. And then
All those
Blake
nurses.
yeah, that's the
lucky
one.
Pup.
And then on a Tuesday, you'd got Blake 7. And after that, if you flicked over to ITV, you'd get the start of Coronation Street. Back in the day when we had 2.5 channels, if you remember.
Mm.
When BBC Two would go off early.
I watched all those shows. I was very, very young. I watched all those shows, but with that sparseness, it lasted for years and years and years and years. The British channels just didn't bother making anything. If they did, they'd give it about a fortnight, and then they were surprised when it didn't work, when it didn't take hold, when people didn't find it. Because whenever they made the stuff, they never advertised it. Or they'd buy American imports in, and they'd give them a run for a few weeks. Then they'd give them the graveyard slot or take them off entirely. So the next generation, being on cassette, put it entirely in our power. It was there if we wanted it. And the reason why it succeeded, because BBC Two, they got it in 1990, and they gave it that once a week slot, and it did okay. But it took Sky to get it, to take it off the BBC.
Because they really did market it well.
They believed in it. Because by that point, it had been massively successful in the States. And the BBC, they were behind, they're behind the times now, they were behind the times then. So we're talking 89, 1990. So their answer was, even though they'd got, at that point, there was already 90 episodes of the thing built up. But they still did what the BBC always do. Oh, we'll just tuck it away on a Wednesday at tea time on the Minority Channel where nobody, it got the Radio Times cover, to be fair. But apart from that, they just left it to its own devices and wondered why people didn't warm to it. They didn't get behind it. But Sky, they knew what was going on in the States and in other countries too, because it had taken off elsewhere, stripped it across the week, and then on a certain night of the week, they premiered a brand new episodes, I believe, in double bills. So they couldn't have got more behind it, and because Sky itself was starting to boom around that time, that was it. Absolute magic. Star Trek in Britain, Next Generation, kind of got lucky. The stars really did align for it. I'd like to say it was because it was a real quality show. No, it wasn't that at all. It was the right show for Sky at the right time.
Yeah,
we all got lucky.
Well, it was a case of serendipity, to be fair.
Yeah.
And what a ship! The Enterprise D. The first time I saw it, I thought, "Christ, that's an ugly spaceship." But she grew on me over time, and I really, really did like that ship and how it was designed and the lines of it all. And the first time Deanna Troi gets behind the wheel, she fucking crashes it. And moving on to another part of the franchise, or a quick beauty shot there of the Enterprise E. Sovereign class, I think, is well sexy, but that's just my opinion. And then after during Deep Space Nine, Next Gen, we had Deep Space Nine. Unfortunately, I've cut Michael Dorn's head off because I didn't have enough room to get
You're
him.
You're a purist, aren't you? Only seasons 1 and 2 came for you.
Well, I thought I'd stick to the original format. If I was sticking to the original format, I would have stuck a copy of Terry Farrell's head over Nicole DeBoer's, but that's a different story. DS9 was a different kettle of fish, primarily developed by Michael Piller, which it was his baby of a fashion. And I thought it was, how could I put it? Like Scotty said, it had that darker tone about it. It was Star Trek, but a bit more edgier, a bit more, even though
it's slightly cynical, isn't it?
It is.
So
And
it appeals
even
to
though it's a grounded, hold your bloody horses, you, Scotty. I hear you huffing and puffing. You'll get your chance.
Well, no, but here's my thing. Is that there is a progression of the nature of Starfleet and the Federation throughout the history that we have covered so far.
Mm,
I
agree.
And we'll flash back to Archer and the NX-01 when we get to the end of this. But like, we have had the expansion of the Federation, Starfleet, and diplomacy, and the virtue of a humanist. The human adventure is just beginning kind of thing going on with Star Trek. And then we get to the Next Generation, and then all of a sudden they get punched in the face by the Borg. So
True.
now the Federation is just like, oh, things could get a little serious. Then we get to Deep Space Nine, and oh yeah, shit gets real. Because now we're exploring even more of the galaxy through the Celestial Temple, the Gamma Quadrant wormhole, whatever you want to call it. And now we're going into, like, truly where no man has gone before.
Well, that was very clever, wasn't it? Because it enabled them, Scotty, to have their cake and eat it. So they could be stationary when it suited them and go elsewhere.
But this is also, again, like, this is what I'm saying in terms of in-universe, but also out of universe. We get Rick Berman, Ira Stephen Baird, Ronald D. Moore, Michael Piller. Like, we get so many amazing, Brannon Braga. We get amazing writers who are sort of reverential to entertainment properties like John Wayne movie. Michael Piller was a LA baseball fan. Like, all these people who are dealing with their sort of cultural influences and understanding where Gene Roddenberry was coming for. Some of them were, pardon the term, reared by Gene Roddenberry, saying, this is the way it works. This is what this is. This is how this does this. And these men and women were absolutely reverent to, like, yeah, no, we dig what Star Trek is and we want to carry this torch.
Do you know, it
wasn't a property, it was a story.
It was high time the Federation got a bloody nose. It had been far too complacent for far too long. And then you got the Borg and definitely the Dominion. But I think they were necessary evils for the Federation to move on. It had become a bit entrenched in its own glory. It had gone up its own arse a little bit in places. Sheer fucking hubris.
Reveling in its own crapulence.
Pretty much. But the thing I liked about DS9, you'd got that level of familiarity. You'd got Chief O'Brien. I think he was the anchor point for that season 1. And he did it really well. Cole Meany was very underserved during Next Gen. He was in the pilot. He was Con, if you remember, on the battle bridge in Encounter at Farpoint.
Something very reassuring about that, man. I mean, considering the parts that he's played since, mainly alcoholics. When you look back and you think how much of a steady presence he was, an anchoring presence he was throughout TNG and then into this, it seems anachronistic. But he was just so relatable. It's a wonderful layered performance. And you could say, he's not given any prosthetics to make him stand out in any way. He's not even given any kind of tragic backstory. He's got a wife, he's got a nipper. It's wonderful, and it brings out the best in him. All of them. I love. This is my jam. I adore Deep Space Nine.
But also,
my favorite Star Trek.
It is something that was missing between Star Trek, the original series, and Star Trek: The Next Generation. Is that there was no real passing of the baton until later. Like, they were very reticent to get into original series stuff on The Next Generation. But because you have a direct transition of one of the crew members of the Enterprise transferring to Deep Space Nine, that kind of gave us a level of continuity that was, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, this is all the same world. And we didn't really have that in the transition between Next Generation and the original
TV
series.
staple, wasn't it, Scotty? Because they'd done that with various shows, sitcoms, dramas, stretching.
They tried with Next
like the way back.
Generation not to make it a spin-off when it clearly was, but they sort of loosened those nooses. Bad choice of words. But
well,
like
the anchor,
yeah. Like this
No, I
is
was just
this
gonna-
is definitely this is a spin-off, but it is its own thing and it builds on the world. It's not just like the continuing adventures of Joey.
well, and the point you made about it being him being an anchor is true, because I think they needed that, because this was a show that you're no longer on a starship. You're at a fixed point over the Bajoran homeworld, and you needed some familiarity. Even if the Star Trek fan like myself was going to follow this show no matter what, I think it helped you usher in the casual fan. Hey, I know that guy. Wasn't he on that ship with Picard? And so, from a writing standpoint, if you're a TV producer, I think it's genius. And then later adding Worf, it just brings I don't want to keep saying familiarity, but it makes you comfortable with the show, because the shows overlap just like they did with in the latter 2 seasons of the next TNG, but also with Voyager. You had them all kind of simultaneously going on, and like you said, you know that they're all in the same universe. You don't have to say, well, geez, when is this occurring? Well, we know when it's occurring because Picard actually dropped him off at the station. You know.
Yeah, because he had that bit of a awkward moment with Ben Sisko, didn't he?
Yes.
On the,
Yeah.
in the ready room.
Hey,
that was
you killed my
awkward.
wife, you son of a bitch.
Hey, motherfucker, you killed my wife. Phaser drive-by in an Argo, an unmarked Argo at 2:00 in the morning. There we go.
I think Avery Brooks is an excellent character. to
He
be the
is.
captain of
He's
the station, too.
fantastic.
I remembered him with Spencer for Hire, and so with him coming to the show, it wasn't like, gee, who is this person? That I liked him as an actor before that, and then having him in science fiction was just that much better.
He was a strong enough lead, so much so
Yes.
that he made that show his own.
Yep.
A lot of the characters, it was an ensemble cast, obviously, but you got every character had carved a small little niche in every episode.
Strange,
Quark
because
worked
it is
well.
more of an ensemble cast, I feel, both TOS and TNG. Despite the fact that I love every single one of the characters from both those casts. TOS is William Shatner's show. TNG belongs to Patrick Stewart. I think with this cast, and this is no slight on Avery Brooks at all, because in many ways he is my favourite Star Trek captain as well. It's not Avery Brooks' show. It really does belong to all of them. It's the first true ensemble Star Trek show that's about a group of people and a set of guiding principles that they already hold, or that they find, or that they share. It's a fabulous show, and it evolves considerably, I know, and it did face its own problems. It was far from perfect, but I think there's so much in this series that when was it? 32 years ago it started, and it's only now in the last 5 to 10 years, tops 10 at the latest, that people have really started to give the credit it deserved. And the cast, their own sort of flowers, if you like, for putting in such incredible work. Most of them stayed with the show for the full 7 years. A real commitment.
Yeah, well, when you've got a 7-year series and it's doing so well, you don't look as a jobbing actor in LA. You don't look a gift horse in the mouth. You're going to ride it for as long as you can, and it was just good that the cast members did for so long. And I think it worked out well for everybody. We had a good retention of characters. There wasn't particularly many deaths that made people and fans go, "Oh no, we don't want you to do that for." And the thing is, I like most about Star Trek is telling people that Chief Eddington is the guy from Krull, and people go, "What?"
I know.
Mind
Dude,
blown.
I just found that out like within the last year, and I was like, I gotta get myself a copy of Krull.
It's not that good. You're
No,
not
Trev,
missing
how
out.
did
Yeah,
you like
no,
this
but it's got
character
Eddington.
dash?
I know it'll make Ben Sisko angry, so it'll be fine.
That's all right. Gamer, you were saying?
Yeah, how did you like the changing of the character Dax?
I just wish Terry Farrell hadn't have gone up her own arse a little bit, because it would have been nice to have that consistency in character. Fair enough. It's the Curzon character. It's the symbiote. I understand that. And that was the nice bit of flexibility that character had. But Terry Farrell shouldn't have done what she did for more money. But I heard rumors, like most people, cosmetics were costing her too much, because apparently she was powdering her nose far too much. But moving swiftly on, because time is fleeting, let's have a nice shot of what I like to call terrac noir. Not many people do, but I do believe, if that's the original name of DS9, that's what you've got to stick to, haven't you? The only thing missing outside of that space station is a jump gate. Oh no, you've got a wormhole.
Yeah.
Is everybody else seeing that picture? Because I'm getting some bizarre results. No, this picture doesn't seem to want to work for some reason. Anybody else seeing that?
Yeah.
I've seen Terrac Noir.
Yeah. Well, I could see it. It's changed now. Yeah, that was a very intricate model, and it was all motion controlled, and ILM did a fantastic job with that, I thought. Like all Star Trek at that time, all the visuals were motion controlled. Fair enough, they did recycle a lot of footage, and you can't blame the production company and Paramount for doing that, because it was a hell of an expensive show to produce. All of them were expensive at the time. But moving on, everybody's favorite. Here's Voyager. But
it's not quite the punchline it used to be.
It isn't, and I think that show has a lot of merits. The only downside to the entire series, Harry Kim was the longest-serving ensign in Starfleet.
And we still like him better than Wesley.
Oh, well, Wesley Crusher, no. I'm just glad they got rid of him.
Come on, just say it. Say it publicly. Don't lie. Harry Kim is better than Wesley Crusher. Yes?
He is. I am not doubting that. I am not casting any aspersions or saying
I'm glad
anything
we're
contrary.
in agreement.
I agree. I much prefer Harry Kim. He's like Wesley Crusher, but better in every respect. And he's got pubes.
See, I don't think there's
Wesley
anything
didn't.
in entertainment. I don't think there's anything worse that anyone or anything can be than boring. And I would take Wesley Crusher over Harry Kim any day of the week. That character, and this is no slight on the actor, because I think he seems like a really sweet guy, and he's certainly very proud of being in it. But that character is boring as fuck. There's no way of getting around it. At least you can. At least with Wesley Crusher, you can. If people hate him, they will be able to tell you why they hate him.
Well,
and I do know people who like him.
The character was a prick.
Well, this is it, yeah. And
you don't like Harry Kim?
No, I don't like Wesley Crusher. He's a prick.
Yeah.
The problem I've got with Harry Kim is I don't remember a fucking thing about him.
Oh,
whereas I can tell you a dozen or more things about Wesley Crusher.
Yeah, I think Dan's right. Wesley's character is a little more dynamic. Harry Kim, now that you mention off the top of my head, I can't tell you anything he did during the series.
Well, I think we'll have to agree to disagree, because I'm wanting to.
Can I just in defense of a Harry Kim,
you're going to do anyway, so get on with it.
All right. I think that he is loyal, capable. He is best friend to Tom Paris. And he is a cross between Chekhov and Geordi. And that is your operations officer.
Someone's best mate is not a really...
No, but no, Tom and Harry are best friends.
I admire your affection for the character. I just...
like I said before,
I just feel like everyone
we'll just have to agree to disagree on that.
All right, fine.
But if you're talking about boring characters on Voyager, it was Jennifer Lean who got the boot because
Yeah, but
she was the
gets
most.
a pass because she was hot.
She wasn't though. Have you seen her these days?
Oh, she isn't now.
God, she's got a criminal
I-
record, and she's
She
on
looks
the
like
sex
crazy
offenders list.
Meg who sleeps in the front steps of the Iceland.
We're talking about
local
Cass.
high street.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
do I. So no, but here's the thing. And Jennifer Leanne, I enjoy as Cass. I always thought that she was an ill-conceived character. Hey, everybody, she's 2. It's like, what?
Yeah, that just sounds a
How
bit
am I
wrong to
supposed
me.
I can't wrap
Sounds
my
even
head around
worse
this.
now, doesn't it?
But the thing is that if you would like to remember Jennifer Leanne outside of her 2-year-old character in Star Trek Voyager, she was also in the first Adam Sandler comedy album, They're All Gonna Laugh at You. And it is from the sketch, a buffoon goes on a date. And you can probably find that anywhere on the YouTubes. But yes,
She had a bit of a career before she came to. I did wonder how she managed to
Yeah,
find herself
she
in this
did.
show.
She
Because
was,
it's such a strange character. In all joking apart, it's a really strange character, and it does feel
is.
somewhat anachronistic when you go back and watch. It seemed weird at the time, and it's even weirder now.
Yeah. They were trying to do a science fiction thing, but it ended up being weird and creepy, especially because how old is Neelix?
Too old. I think
Too old.
The most overplayed actor in Voyager was sadly Robert Picardo. The Doctor became, how can I put it nicely? He just became a bit jarring and annoying towards the end, which was a shame, really. They tried to do too much with him. Do you know what I mean? Like oversell him and overplay him a little bit too much. And I sure
Too many
shit.
limits. The problem was that they'd as clever as the idea and as bold as the idea of having a hologram as a lead character is, it's got so many problems built into it. They found that in Red Dwarf. They couldn't leave Rimmer where he was. In record time, they had to give him the hard light drive because it was too restrictive. They had the same problem with him on Voyager, but they resisted sort of any kind of development at all technologically, and thus the character himself could only ever really go back to kind of factory settings most of the time. They'd sort of built a rod for their own back there, and considering that I thought that Robert Picardo was immensely loyal to stay with that for as long as he did because he's a superb actor. And,
I get that.
They lent on
I would like to
far
say
too much.
I would like to say that the best performance of the holographic Doctor was by Jerry Ryan when she was inhabited by the holographic Doctor in her.
I'd like to inhabit Jerry Ryan.
Well, yeah, no, I'd love to be
remember that.
inside her too, but whatever. She's like, no, she wouldn't dig me. And so, but the thing is that no, the holographic Doctor goes into 7 of 9's implants, and finally, I guess, the holographic Doctor gets to taste cheesecake, and it is one of the best performances of in Star Trek. It is Jerry Ryan doing amazing work playing the holographic Doctor, and that is my critique of Robert Picardo, is that he inhabited the character for 7 years, and one scene by Jerry Ryan was better than his entire 7-year run.
Do you know, I thought his best performance as the Doctor was in the episode Message in a Bottle, when Voyager discovers the Hirogen communications relay network, and he gets transported onto the Prometheus when it's been basically stolen by the Romulans. But
with Andy Dick?
Andy Dick is EMH2. And I thought that was a great episode.
That
like one of
good.
The fun bubblegum type episodes. Every series deserves like a bubblegum episode every now and again.
Sure.
And I thought that was the perfect tonic because Voyager was getting a bit anal, to be fair.
Hashtag
Really?
Kiko Pegs.
I must have missed that episode.
Not in that respect, Dan. Wishful thinking, eh? One more slide
No,
to
but
go
you
out
have
of
a
this
good
bunch.
point. You do. Maybe I'm being a little too critical of Robert Picardo. I apologize. I loved him in Gremlins too.
I liked him in Inner Space as the cowboy. I thought that was a hell of a lot of fun.
Joe Dante movies.
Exactly. He's in a lot of Joe Dante movies. He was in Explorers as well. He played 3 parts in that movie. And another Joe Dante favourite in some of those films too, Dick Miller, who got shot by the Terminator.
And also Dick Miller was also in Past Tense in Deep Space Nine. He was one of the people in charge of the Sanctuary City with a shotgun.
Phase plasma rifle in the 40-watt range. Only what you see
Hey,
here,
man,
pal.
only what you see.
I guess I'll be closing early today.
Hey, you can't do that.
Let's just have a quick few minutes talking about Enterprise. Now, you two lads are getting on famously, but I feel like we're leaving Gamer out. So, Gamer, I'll pass it to you. Enterprise, what were your thoughts on that series?
When it first started, I had a bit of an issue with it, with the whole Xindi War. It was introducing an element that hadn't, at least in television, been introduced before, that, like, okay, where are we going with this? And they're chasing off to the, I'm trying to think where they were going, but how do I want to phrase this? The show started slow for me in the first season, but then it actually, I enjoyed it. I mean, I watched all the episodes. I think the show ended on a thud, and seasons 2, 3, and 4 were good. 3 and 4 were much better than the first 2 seasons. But the whole, I don't know, the time travel at the end of the show where they're dealing with the Nazis and the whole founding of the Federation. It's just, I mean, I like the cast. Jonathan Archer is a good character. I liked all the characters, quite frankly. I didn't like how they killed off Connor Trinneer's character.
Yeah, Trip.
That was just too much. I gave him a disservice. So for me, it's a mixed bag. I mean, I watched all the episodes, but a lot of highs and a lot of lows. For me, it's probably a wash.
Yeah. Dan, what do you think?
About Enterprise generally?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a fabulous show for the most part, with the exception of season 1 is a bit of a trudge, because again it's a little dull as they're kind of moving the furniture around, and I think it's a more modest show even than Voyager was, and I think that again it's a very well put together cast, considered characters, but the stories in season 1 are very, very humdrum. They feel like rejected Voyager stories, which often felt like rejected TNG stories. So it doesn't really have its own. With season 2, just like the gentleman just said, the oldest gamer just said, with season 2, that was the year of the Xindi War, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Pretty sure.
Major mistake, because the series hadn't established its own identity at that point, and their remedy to that was in constructing that arc, which just sounded like the invasion of the Clog people from Planet Clog.
I love them.
It just got nothing, but there was nothing there. There was no. They were just creatures that came out of nowhere. It was a danger that you were told about. You were told it was him, and it just didn't hang together somehow. And because we hadn't been with these characters for long enough, and the series wasn't working at that point, it just didn't work. It took. I think the problem was that what's his name, Rick Berman, was completely out of ideas, and it took. He knew it was when he moved aside for Manikoto. In my view, seasons 3 and 4 of Enterprise are stunning. From start to finish, I was glued to them. I mean, I think the first half of season 1's pretty good. It just falls apart a little. But seasons 3 and 4 are absolutely brilliant. They're very brave.
That's why I say it's a wash, because 3 and 4 make up for what we didn't get.
They do. I wouldn't describe them as mold breaking either. Oldie. I'm going to call you Oldie.
Gamer.
You prefer gamer? You prefer?
Yeah, that's fine.
Gamer, stick to gamer, yeah.
It's not. It doesn't break any molds as such. But Manny Koto really went for it in the writing. Dialed up the characterization a lot. Created. I would say it wasn't artificial tension between the characters, but just every character was just given an extra crease or two, and you were never sure. It just didn't feel so safe. And technologically, it felt like it was really aiming for something as well. They brought in interesting supporting cast. See, what they did as well is that they looked to DS9. They took some of the elements of DS9 that had worked, and they were able to use those because they'd adopted a certain amount of the way that DS9 had the overarching stories. They adopted some of those principles for seasons 3 and 4 as well, very, very wisely. And it all came together just beautifully. Scott Bakula, who looked, with the exception of in the first few episodes, Scott Bakula was bored to tears until season 3. It was a miracle they managed to keep hold of him for as long as they could, and thank heaven they did, because he was a brilliant lead. In fact, he was better on that show than he was in Quantum Leap. And,
Really?
I feel so. It was
controversial.
He was fantastically, and don't get me wrong, I'm a big Quantum Leap fan, but I feel that Scott Bakula as an actor gets better with age.
Do you know?
I like him better in Lord of Illusions.
With that statement, Dan, I've got 2 words for you. Oh boy!
Don't get me wrong. Quantum Leap stretched him in all different directions, but as regards staying with a character, I just think that actors, generally speaking, actors do tend to get better with age if they're doing it properly.
Well, if they're getting the feet wet with a character and they have that time to develop it and take it to its maximum potential, even though it was only a 5-season run, but I think he was starting to find his stride. And a good point you made there, Dan. The fledgling Starfleet needed that knocking down a peg or two. It was getting a bit big for its boots. And I think that
made it seem like it was so easy. Everything came together so naturally and with very few hitches. It's like, the
Vulcans
problem they ever had was
them.
that some tap screw came undone, or that some alien wagged a finger. But in seasons 3 and 4, they really did let it off the chain, and I just felt it was brilliant. I know. I mean, we could. It's a pity about the final episode, but I sincerely don't think that. But there's some. I can't really stand up for the final episode. I think it meant well at the time.
Yeah,
but we shouldn't let that cloud. I don't think we should let that cloud what were in the direct precursor to that, like something like 60 episodes of generally thrilling adventure TV.
Good episode.
Scotty, what do you think to Enterprise?
Well, first things first, I can't argue. The last episode sucks. But I do think that throughout the struggle of the first steps into the galaxy of Starfleet, the Federation, Earth, because Starfleet and the Federation don't exist, I think it's an incredible adventure show, and I think it builds. I think that the worst part about it, when I watched it the first time on opening night, I tuned in. I've watched every Star Trek premiere so far.
Right, yeah.
And I think that Enterprise was just like, oh yeah, no, I can't wait until this goes. This will go. The special effects are amazing. The cast is amazing. I am a Scott Bakula fan because Scott's got to stick together. But I think it is. I think it's an incredible adventure show. I think that it is the closest in spirit to the original series in terms of exploration. And then when we get to the in the first season, and then when we get to the second season, and we're doing the Xindi War, I'm like, whoa, you're doing Deep Space Nine? And then, like, in terms of serialization, And as it goes, I just really appreciate the characters, the actors. I think that it embodies the spirit of Star Trek in a classic and next generation way. Yeah, you're right. Berman and Braga were tired of doing Star
I
Trek.
think so. I think, Brannon had pretty much run out of reasonable ideas.
Yeah.
And he rehashed a lot of those ideas on the Orville. If you look at it,
But the Orville was energetic.
It was, and it was fun, but you could go, hang on a minute, I've seen that concept somewhere else before. Go on.
No, Trev, I
Yeah.
got to ask you a question about the Enterprise specifically.
Right.
Did you ever see the episode that was directed by Roxanne Dawson? And
yes, I know which one you're going to say.
And
She
and
was
it's
the voice
one
of that.
where everyone is just trapped in cum.
I thought you were going to say the one with the automated repair thing.
No, I was thinking about the one where it's all like the secreted resin that everyone is all like sucked up into. Have you ever seen that one?
I can't remember that one. Secreted
Well,
from
you would
what?
remember it because it's vile.
I probably can, but you remember the episode where they found that station that was stealing people and using them as basically CPUs? The voice of that space station was Roxanne Dawson because she did direct that particular episode. I just want to quickly run through something, just moving on to something different.
Yeah.
I'm going to run by the top 10 Star Trek series as voted for by people on IMDb. And this goes to show they know fuck all.
Oh, I'm getting a beer for this.
Right. Number 10, Star Trek Lower Decks. Anybody actually watch that piece of shit? Because I gave it a solid miss.
I watched season 1. It was fucking terrible.
All I heard was it was a bit raunchy and a lot of backdoor action and stuff like that, and that put me off.
He's at it again. Back to anal.
Yeah. Gamer, did you manage to catch this particular?
No, I somehow avoided this one.
You lucky bastard. Scotty, did you check out Lower Decks? He's gone for a beer. Anyway.
I like Lower Decks. I think Lower Decks is a fun time.
Now, I don't agree with this at number 9, but Star Trek Enterprise. I think that should be a lot higher, in my opinion.
It should be a
but
lot
that's just
higher.
me.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
well, let's see what's next.
The problem is that a lot of people packed it in after 7 or 8 episodes and never went back to it. And in all fairness to them, I can see why.
Every show has a rough start. Next Gen Season 1 is shite.
Yeah. Except for Tasha Yar. She's harsh.
I don't know. I didn't really
like
find
Tasha
her
Yar.
appealing.
Don't get in my grill.
Her sister's a lot better. Her sister's fitter. Number 8, Star Trek Prodigy. I got 3 episodes in and thought, fuck this. This is shite.
Enterprise is better than Prodigy.
Of course it is. Did anybody else think this was a pile of absolute bollocks?
One of my mates, he works, say one of my friends, my kind of, what would you call it, mentor in podcasting. He now works for Rod and Bruce. And he tells me he works on the official Star Trek podcast and stuff. And he keeps telling me, because I tell him how much I've hated recent Trek. Oh, but you must see Prodigy. It's the one that I know you'll like. You must see it. And I still haven't. So he keeps giving me the hard sell on this. And I think just because you work from, but how good can it be? I don't know. I mean,
I'd sooner eat a plate of gack that's gone off.
Well, as long as
it can't be any worse than Lower Decks.
Yeah, but no, it's rancid.
Don't eat dead gach. Is all.
Yeah,
I'm saying.
but I'd sooner eat it foul than
fine. Prodigy is dead gach. We get it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Anyway, I still think Enterprise should rate higher. At number 7, Voyager. I still think this should have rated higher.
Yeah, it's too low.
It is. It's definitely. But then again, IMDb, anybody can vote for what they like. I don't agree with that. I think Enterprise should be higher. Number 9, I think, is severely unfair. 7's unfair for Voyager. At number 6, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. I
No.
never made it past episode 6. And then I
Season
heard
one.
season 1, yeah. And then I heard rumors about that musical episode they did with singing Klingons, and I thought, it's jumped the fucking shark already.
Well, it didn't. It wasn't. I wouldn't go so far as to say it jumped the shark, but it was shit. Absolute. In my view, most of season 1 of this was absolutely fantastic, really entertaining, and proper Star Trek.
I liked Anson Mount. I thought it was a very good Pike.
Season 2 is a huge disappointment, the worst of which being that musical episode. The finale is excellent. And there's a couple of the episodes which kind of almost touch the quality of season 1, but I do feel season 3 make it.
Wait, this list is going to put Discovery as being better than Strange New Worlds?
Yeah, you can see it. It's coming, isn't it? It's like that episode where it was cum-filled on Enterprise. You could see it coming. Number 5, Star Trek Picard. Oh, God, no. That should be lower.
I mean,
I don't know if it should be lower. Well, compared to the original series, it should probably maybe be 1 lower. I watched all of season 1. I enjoyed season 3 and didn't watch season 2.
I wish
but I don't think you can put this show ahead of any of the original series.
Definitely not. I agree with you.
No, Picard isn't even as good as Lower Decks.
I don't know about that.
I do.
It's like the Matlock version of Star Trek, isn't it?
Oh my God, that is accurate.
It is, though.
I've never seen that.
You're not missing anything.
That's the one about the old boy. The old boy's the detective, isn't it?
Yeah. Feel free to use that one, Scotty, by all means.
No. This is yours, patented.
Number 4. Here we go. Fork's sake.
No.
Don't agree. That should be at least, what? 8? 8.
Even if this list is all accurate to this point, Picard's better than Discovery every day of the week.
Well,
absolutely.
I think Lower Decks is better than Discovery. Not fucking
female.
Yeah, no, I do too.
Jesus. Sorry. Yeah, but she
Shut
is.
up.
Michael Burnham is the worst fucking Star Trek character ever.
Dude, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Star Trek Discovery introduced a silhouette of Cybok and said, "Ooh, Cybok's coming." And I was like, "Oh my God, is Cybok gonna be Discovery's Khan?" And they never did anything with Cybok ever again. And I was like, "You teased me with Cybok. I love Cybok. Why won't you give me Cybok?"
What's funny about this show is I watched all of season 1, and then when Picard came out, because all I did during season 1 was complain about how bad the character Michael Burnham is, and that if this show didn't have her, it would be a good show, which is hilarious. But compared to Picard, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is great." And then as Picard kind of progressed, it was like, "Wait a minute, what are they doing here?" So
I have a weird
the whole
thing,
earlier
though,
conversation.
because I like Agnes
garbage to
Girardi.
garbage,
Yeah,
I think that what's her name, Sonequa Martin Green. She's ridiculous.
No, Alison Pill, who played Agnes Girardi.
Not hot enough to make me watch that. Or stay with that show past 3.
You're just saying that because she's Canadian.
Is she? I didn't know.
Yeah, she's Canadian.
I just said it because she was in Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
I wouldn't quote me on this, but I think she's from Nova Scotia.
I don't know.
I could be wrong with that. IMDb.
You know what? What's her name? Sorry, that was racist. Allison. No, not Allison. Elliot Page.
Oh God.
Elliot Page is from Nova Scotia.
Really? Any ideas of what might be at number 3?
It better be the Next Generation.
I would imagine it would probably be Deep Space Nine.
It's probably Deep Space Nine. Yeah,
it's got to be. It is Deep Space Nine. There you go. Now that's definitely got to be in the top 3.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good. I don't agree with the rest of the list, but
no, I
top
don't.
3, I think I know what's going to happen.
I definitely agree. Number 3 for Deep Space Nine. I would say 4 for Voyager and 5 for Enterprise.
Yes.
So what do you think? There's only 2 more shows to go, Next Gen or the original series. What do you think is going to be at number 2, guys?
Probably
Galaxy
the original
Quest.
series.
Galaxy Quest, you twit. At number 2, the original series. Oh my God.
What?
No, I'm not
Age
surprised.
bias. It's age bias.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not,
that makes
I'm not
sense.
digging that.
I don't like it at all, but I get your rationale.
Yeah, this to me should be a clear number 1.
Yep.
So obviously at number 1 is Next Generation. Who the fuck is voting for this shit? Because it's wrong. I mean, I know that's just from a Gen X's perspective. We think it's wrong.
I can't call foul on any of, in all fairness, because I love TNG and TOS equally for different reasons, weirdly.
Yeah.
So I can't really call foul on either of them being 1 or 2. I think, as you said, it's partly an age thing, because people who grew up watching the show, it's starting to age out a little now. Of course it is. So it's everything else. And as much as I love Deep Space Nine, I can see why, for example, I can see why some people prefer Voyager, and I can see why some people prefer Enterprise.
Well, it's each to their own,
it's not
isn't it?
personally objectionable, but yeah, I think
because they're so
age bias is
distinctive.
there, you know?
And in all fairness, all 3 of those shows are spin-offs.
I have got.
I don't count TNG as a spin-off. I count it as a sequel. And it's
an extension of the original series. Here's something to cheer you up anyway. 16% and 19% on Rotten Tomatoes for Section 31. I think that is rather high and generous.
It is high considering after the
calm
Acolyte
down.
aired, it got all
Michelle
the way
Yeoh's got a big family. Do you think that's what it is? They just keep voting?
Well, yeah, probably half of China's voted for it and they've done it at gunpoint. I think this should be lower than the Acolyte.
Yes.
Trev,
hello.
I would like to ask you a question because this is something that I'm curious about, and just in terms of statistics.
Mm-hmm.
So the original series being labeled as number 2, and the Next Generation being labeled as number 1. Now, my question is, does that include that the Next Generation got 4 more seasons than the original series? That there are more stories, and also it really did, with the assistance of the original series movies. Like, you get Star Trek 4, 5, and 6, and yeah, I like 5. But that comes out around the same time as the Next Generation, and everyone's into it. Like, it was an explosion in the early 90s. For Star Trek, everyone loved it. TNG was the top of the charts. And I like, really, like, in terms of, yes, the original series lit the world on fire, but the Next Generation brought it back for an epic concert.
It did, but it was a slow burn to start with. But once it had established itself and got over that particularly dodgy in places season 1, it started to. I think it was the whole data screwing Tasha Yar what cemented it in pop culture lore for a lot of people. That just shows you.
Can I tell you a rude joke?
If it's the young lady from Venus.
No, I was just saying the weirdest thing about Data is that he does have a dick, but he doesn't have balls.
Well, that's all right.
Ask a lady.
He must look like an action figure with a bit
let's not continue this.
With a bit of plastic that's like been stuck on a really dodgy looking piece of plastic. I want
It's just like a caber.
Yeah. I just want to ask the chat, right? Considering everything we've talked about and how things have been going with Star Trek, in your opinion, before we start talking about it, I would like to know, what would you do and what's necessary to put Star Trek back on track and make it what it was, not what it became? Yeah? How do we do that? How do we put things right? How do we reset the timeline? And, putting this 25% difference to one side, because I think that's a poor excuse for a poor product. You can't say, well, the reason people don't like Star Trek anymore is because we have to make it 25% different. That is a poor fucking excuse at best. So, chat, I'm giving you the opportunity now. How do we put Star Trek right?
And let me tell you, chat, I'll tell you how we do it. First things first, we scrap everything that Kurtzman is doing except for Strange New Worlds. We just keep Strange New Worlds.
You'd keep Strange New Worlds?
No, I'd flush it all.
I'd say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit, but that's just my opinion, just to be sure.
Second thing we do, we remaster Deep Space Nine and Voyager in HD with all of the things that we have scrapped. It's like, no, we're not doing Starfleet Academy. We're not doing any of your other whatevers. We're just going to do Strange New Worlds for a little while, and we're going to put all of our other production money into remastering Deep Space Nine and Voyager, because not only is it really good Star Trek, but it's also culturally significant. So if you want to care about your fucking legacy, you monkeys, then the third thing we do after we discover whether or not we're going to release onto a specific streaming service for everything Star Trek, put it all in one place, which you should, because come on, you want to go to one place for all of your Star Trek.
That's it's nice to have all your eggs in one basket. But just moving on, Scotty.
Yes.
As going on to what the chat are saying, MC says they need to stop making prequel shows and move on to the future. And I kind of agree with that. That would be nice. Instead of doing all these shows what turn out to be crap and they don't adhere to canon or timeline, I think they should just put all that to one side. Anti-derivative Jill says, dump everything done by Secret Hideout, hire science fiction novelists, hire everyone who worked on the 90s Trek, and then new sci-fi writers that they can mentor.
Wow.
And I think
Jill's response is what I have down partially. That's excellent.
I think
my only question is which science fiction novelists?
Well, that's debatable, and I think that's a discussion for another time.
I can't read.
I don't believe that for a moment, sir.
Yeah,
it's their jobs to find the writers, though. They should already be aware of who's writing what, where they're doing it, and how far along.
We should get the Doctor Who writers.
Oh, fuck off.
I know that.
I can't recommend that.
Sorry, I just wanted you to swear at me.
All right. Well, there you go. You've got an early birthday present there, Scotty. The Internet Help Desk says, I don't think you can repair things. I think it needs to go on hiatus for a few years. That's not really the answer, is it? You can put something to rest, but when that damage is done,
Star Trek's really easily fixed.
And Skydance isn't going to do that. They're not going to spend the billions and then shelve it.
It's easier to fix Star Trek than any of the others.
Just hang on a second.
The list that I have right now is that moving forward, doing anything with Star Trek, I think that we have firmly established, both in new Trek and old Trek, that the Borg are dead.
Well, yeah.
We do not do anything with the Borg. And if you do want to write a story about the Borg, then you have to write it now and wait until 2035, current calendar. You cannot have the Borg forever. How long was it between Khan and his resurgence? Like, we have to leave the Borg. The Borg are dead. We're done with the Borg.
They've milked that particular aspect of the franchise to death. Now, Swapper says, keep it the fuck away from bad reboot and Secret Hideout and make it less Star Wars and more 2001 A Space Odyssey. Yeah, that's a good assessment. Emperor Goodwin.
Why don't we just make it more Star Trek?
Well, more tribbles.
That is a good idea. Just let me get through some of these chats, guys, and then we'll get back to what we were talking about. Emperor Goodwin says Paramount has to stop making shows and movies and call off their lawyers. They need to encourage fan films and games. That's not a bad idea. Rebuild the fan base and interest in the series. There are lots of people doing stuff. You've got Axanar for a start. You've got all the new like TOS type stuff. The one with Chris Doohan in. What's that one called, Scotty? I bet you know.
Star Trek Continues.
That's the one. I just couldn't remember. Internet Help Desk. Paramount needs to stop making shows and sell out licenses to fan projects. Yeah, that seems to be the general consensus. This one's interesting. Put it back in Roddenberry's world, which it has moved far away from. Starfleet has been completely deconstructed. Yeah, it's like a flat pack piece of furniture from fucking IKEA. It's in pieces, and it does need putting back together. And I agree with that assessment. What's this one? Mike. Oh, Mike. We'll just stick with Mike for now. Just set a new series a generation after TNG and stick to the formula of the latter TNG seasons, but make it a bit grittier, like Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica. Yeah, again, I suppose if you did do something like that, it becomes derivative of itself, you know? And I agree with your assessment there, Scotty. The Borg are tired as fuck. They're rusty. Nobody wants to know anymore. They just need to move on.
The story's been told. From start to finish, the story has been completely told.
You can only milk a cow so long before it keels over and fucking dies.
Going back to the original series, a lot of those episodes ended up being, we're traveling within this sector of space, and all of a sudden we have magnetic pulses. We're investigating. What are these magnetic pulses? And then you find out something fantastical. And it's like, what is it? And it's like, we're very angry with you. Why? Because I showed up. Then it's like, there would be some sort of idea of xenophobia, or there would be some idea of we have our own government and you're not supposed to interfere. We've heard about you. One of your ships crashed. We know about your kind, and we have no folly with you. And it would just be a negotiation, and it would just end up being like come on, man. Don't you think it's a better idea to not die and be adversarial? Like it was a morality tale. It was something where you would think about what we were doing, and it wouldn't be like, don't buy plastic bags.
Do you know what's more important, Scotty? There's something I've been dying to ask you.
Yes.
Does verge unut rin? That one's got you thinking, hasn't it?
No, I know. I don't know the proper response. Does nos iret rin?
No, it's actually Rurapente Dak. There you go.
Oh, shit.
No, Ursula, that's it. I can't remember, but that was a fun scene in Star Trek 6.
No, it is a fun scene, but the problem is, and you've recognized it, is that I have not read the Klingon, I have not read Shakespeare in the original Klingon.
Takpe, takpa. I can see you, Kirk. Can you see me? Oh, do be honest. One warrior to another. No peace in our time. Takpe, takpa.
So but Trev, which is better, Star Trek 2 or Star Trek 6?
2.
Both Nicholas Meyer films. 2 has got the edge over 6 because 6 is a swan song to the original cast.
But I love the sentimentality about 6.
I do too.
6 above.
I love that part of Star Trek 6 when we're in the battle at Kittimer, where Excelsior's not quite there yet, and then Sulu's going, come on, and the helmsman says, she'll fly apart, sir. Fly her apart then. If they'd have flown apart, I wish it had said, "Oh my." That way he does. Right, we've got just under 5 minutes left of the show. Dan, how do we fix Star Trek once and for all?
Well, I have thoughts
And
on
make
that.
it quick.
Jill stole some of my thunder. I would hire writers like Stephen Malazzi and people that have a track record writing successful science fiction. And then your showrunner not only has to be intimately familiar with Star Trek, but also consistent in science fiction. You can't have somebody come in and decide, I'm just going to do what I want to do. You can't do that. What I would do is set. Oh, go ahead.
I've just figured something out. Your name must be Dan, too. Because I said Dan.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear that.
It's all right, but I do like your take on that. Yeah, just get the right people for the job. No narratives, no the message, and all that bollocks. They need to take all the bollocks out of Star Trek, bring it back to brass tacks, back to basics, do it right, and do it how it was meant to be. Dan, your take.
Well, the success of season 1 of Strange New Worlds, which, and I accept that a couple of people may not have liked it as much as I did, but I think it was arguably successful. The reason why it was successful is because it kept it really, really simple. It was a proof of concept that Star Trek still works. If you put 6 or 7 characters on a starship and tell those anthology style stories with them going from place to place to place, different place each week ideally, then you can't really go far wrong. The central guiding principles, values and themes of Star Trek have to be there. Ideally, the lore must be maintained. That's nice if they do that. I think it's essential in this day and age that a show do that. Something's part of a legacy. And the iconography as well means a lot to people. If you maintain that, then people will sit their whole families down in front of something like that. And I mean, that's the thing really. Another key factor with Star Trek that we have to accept is that, and with a lot of these franchises, they've got to stop thinking about the audience that they want and trying to attract younger people. Star Trek is 60 years old. It's largely going to appeal to older people. Stop fighting that. Lean into it, because those older people will bring the younger ones to it in the family audience. And it will change. The Star Trek Strange New Worlds was, if it had have held its nerve for another season. And for all, TNG lost it in season 2, and then it managed to bring it back. Season 3 might be amazing, but I'm going to work on the principle that it's not. That it's going to be even worse. But generally speaking, it was so close to hitting the mark.
Right, I'm gonna have to stop you there, Dan. You made a very good point there, and then one that I just want to expand on just very quickly because I've got less than 2 minutes left of the show. But yeah, they need to stop pigeonholing Star Trek. And instead of making it for a younger generation, they need to make it so it works for everybody. Scotty, give me 45 seconds. How do we repair Star Trek?
James Cromwell, during the press junket for Star Trek First Contact, James Cromwell, you will remember, played Zephram Cochrane. He said, that's why people respond to Star Trek, because it's not a war. It's not a Star War. It's a trek. We're exploring. And I think that's why it resonates with audiences. I'm paraphrasing, but that's my answer, which is his answer. And he's Zephram Cochrane. He invented the warp drive.
He did indeed. Quite correct. And I liked how they stuck with his character and they maintained that continuity between First Contact and Enterprise. I thought that was a great handover from movie to series. And it's set obviously in a time where he's invented that particular version of warp drive. And he's ushered in world peace. He's changed the world. He's made the world a smaller place, but made it a bigger player on a universal stage. The thing is that is the core of what Roddenberry is trying to say. If you stop fighting and start exploring, you never know what's going to happen. You never know what you're going to discover.
meeting people is more important than saying F you.
True. You know, if we do get out there one day and there is intelligent life out there, which probably fucking avoids us like the plague, it'd be nice to make friends and make...
Are there any green girls?
There will be now, Scotty. They will be now, just for you and nobody else. Anyway, it's time for me to start wrapping things up. As always, Scotty, an absolute fucking scream with you on the channel. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me, sir. It's a pleasure, and I'm glad that I didn't offend you.
Oh, you always do, but I don't make a big deal about it.
Yay!
Dan, thank you for joining us, and I hope you can join us again sometime soon.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I really do appreciate it.
Hey, it's nice to have you here. And as always, Gamer, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I know these buggers have railroaded you a little bit, but don't worry. I'll sort them out in the green room after. I'll give them a bit of first. Thanks for joining us, Gamer.
Thank you, Trev, for inviting me.
Always a pleasure, sir. And I just want to thank everybody in the chat. Absolutely fantastic. I hope you've enjoyed me interacting with you a bit more, because I know you do moan about it and whinge about it. I would also like to say thank you to everybody that's been watching the videos so far of past Monday Night Mayhems. I want to say thank you to everyone that's liking and subscribing. And if you haven't liked and subscribed, I hope you can. It really helps, and I want to sort of build this channel up a little bit more and get really talking about more sci-fi stuff and sort of like raise the bar. And I want to say a big thank you to everybody in the chat tonight. Thank you ever so much for interacting with us, and it's been an absolute scream. And don't forget to tune in next week for another